Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're here today at the World Hydrogen Expo 2025 in KINTEX, South Korea. My next guest is Dr. Thompson. Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Thomas.
So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you're doing?
Sure. Well, I'm here as a guest of a company called WHE, which is an Australian-Korean investment and engineering company in renewable sector, KINTEX, and have been speaking at the event about the opportunity to increase the bilateral trade between Australia and Korea. And Australia's been a long-term supplier of LNG to Korea. Now we're looking at, well, how do we build on that trust and actually supply green steel, methanol, ammonia to power the Hyundais of the world to send trains and ships and buses back to us.
Right. You mentioned to me before the interview that Korea and Australia have a really close trade relationship, but it's a little bit imbalanced.
It is imbalanced, Thomas, and I was embarrassed to find out that whilst Korea is the number 3 for Australian exports, they're only number 20 in terms of inbound to Australia, both investment and material goods. So we'd really like to work on, as you say, addressing that imbalance.
So what are some of the ways then that we can do that to increase the trade between the two countries?
Well, I think one of the things that we have said time and time again is to actually improve the speed and the certainty of inbound investment to Australia.
Okay.
I mean, Korea is a security partner of Australia through various military forums. We have a long-standing history of cooperation, but our political system, I hate to say it in Australia, we have local, state and federal government. Sometimes that sort of 3-layer system can become quite unwieldy to some of our Korean partners. So we held an investment roundtable recently in Sydney with a number of powerhouse Korean investors, and basically they all said the same thing. What can we do to try and harmonise and rationalise that approvals process? So that's probably the number one thing we have to work on at the moment.
Yeah, because you mentioned to me, obviously Australia has the resources.
We have.
Korea has the industries.
Correct.
But the question is then,
how do we bring the two together?
Exactly.
Yep. So that's really what we're working on the Korean side, is events like this to actually talk to our Korean investment partners and talk to clean technology partners. So I was saying to your colleague earlier, I spent the earlier part of this week, Thomas, travelling down to Busan and meeting major players like Korea Hydronuclear Power, the Sunbo shipbuilding family, and East West Power. So we've really tried to start to put our feelers out to say, hey, Australia's open for business. We know you've got the clean technology. So we're starting to work with companies also like Doosan. They're a major hydrogen fuel cell company in Korea.
Right.
So we've got a number of projects starting with Doosan. One of the ironies about fuel cells is that we don't have enough electricity in our grid in Australia to charge Korean and Japanese EVs. So one of the ways we're dealing with that is using hydrogen in a fuel cell to create electricity to charge the EVs. Now, Mr. Musk and others probably aren't happy with that, but basically that's the reality of the energy economics in Australia. We need Korean fuel cells to charge EVs in Australia. So we do need hydrogen and fuel cells. So yeah, that's one of the things we're doing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you specifically, this is the Hydrogen Expo.
Yes.
So specifically about the hydrogen industry.
Yep.
It's still a developing industry, and I can understand from talking to people today, it kind of has its ups and downs.
That's for sure.
And some difficulties of really establishing it and competing with other fuel sources and
fossil
things
fuels
like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're really seeing what we're calling in Australia, Thomas, Hydrogen 2.0.
Okay.
I mean, I moved back to Australia from Europe in 2018. I did all my PhD research in Europe and basically started to promote, as you said, the big dream of hydrogen. I was very lucky to have some older colleagues within, say, Linde Gas and companies like that who counseled me on, let's not get carried away. Hydrogen's been around for 100 years in Australia. We use it for cooling turbines in power stations.
Right.
We use it for industrial applications as a chemical feedstock. But the scale of what people were talking about, that's where they started drinking the Kool-Aid. Now, we were talking about gigawatts of projects, Thomas, in Australia, whereas my colleagues in Europe just steadily went from 2 megawatts, 20 megawatts,
slow and steady,
200 megawatts exactly. One of my English colleagues in Alexi, their managing director, Robert Saunders, said, walk before you can run. So that's really what we're now back to, not the beginning, but we're having a bit of a reset in Australia after 8 years.
For a more sustainable long-term development.
Exactly. And I think the other thing, Thomas, as well, we're learning is that hydrogen is a constituent of other gases and chemicals.
Right.
It's not the silver bullet or the platinum bullet, as we say, because we use platinum in certain fuel cells. So basically, we focus more on the end-use application rather than hydrogen as a constituent. And I think when you start to pivot away from that dialogue to say, hey, hydrogen is just another gas, it's a very useful gas, very versatile gas, that's when you start to get the political classes and some of the investors in, okay, this is not just the hydrogen bubble, like the Dutch tulip bubble of the 1600s,
Right.
very famous in your part of the world.
Yes.
We think that change of narrative, just so slightly, and more, as you said, sort of controlled scale up, that will really be the key to seeing Hydrogen 2.0 take off in Australia.
Well, I really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like we could talk all day if they let us. I think we have to call it
Plane to catch.
Alrighty.